In 1970, a boy named Henry is singing with his mom, Annette, while she's driving them home. Suddenly, she sees a truck that has lost control heading for her car. She hits the brakes to stop the car, but the road is too slippery and her car hits the truck. Just as it's about to hit Annette's car again, Henry sees that he's slowly disappearing and he tells his mom, who looks surprised. Just before the big crash, Henry disappears and finds himself at home, watching Annette reading a story to him while his dad, Richard, also joins them. As he looks confused, as he seems to have gone back in time, Henry disappears again and finds himself back at the scene of the crash, where he sees his mom's car explode after getting hit by the truck. Henry immediately tries to run towards the car, but a man stops him and tells Henry there's nothing he can do. The man then says he's also Henry, but from the future, and what happened to little Henry before the crash was that he traveled back in time. He tells little Henry not to be scared, saying everything will be fine and he'll understand his ability to travel through time much later. Older Henry then walks away as the boy still looks confused and wonders what to do next. Meanwhile, Henry returns to the future and lands in a library where he finds some clothes. Whenever Henry travels through time, he loses his clothes and has to start looking for what to wear wherever he lands. The next day, while Henry is at his job at the library, a lady named Claire comes in to ask about a book. She is directed to see Henry, but as soon as she sees him, she looks surprised. She calls Henry by name and says she knows him. She also says he had told her how they'd meet, leaving Henry confused. Claire looks happy as she talks to him, and she says she'll tell him everything he needs to know as long as he agrees to have dinner with her. Henry hesitates at first, but is also curious, so he agrees. However, that night, while Henry is preparing for the date, he disappears and ends up getting arrested for breaking into a store to steal clothes. Before the police officers can take him away in their car, he disappears and finally goes to meet Claire. She starts by telling him that he first appeared to her when she was very young, and he kept coming to see her in the meadow behind her parents' house. Claire also says she wrote down everything that happened in her diary. As Henry decides to have a drink, she tells him he's not supposed to drink. Henry is confused, but Claire tells him that when he gets older, a doctor named Kendrick will tell him to stop drinking as a way to help him prevent his unexpected disappearances. Henry still doesn't understand what's going on, but as Claire touches him, she says she has been in love with him for a long time. After dinner, Claire follows Henry home, and while she stares at him, she remembers the first time they met in the meadow. That day, Claire was playing with her toys when she heard something in the bushes. She soon figures out that it's Henry, who then begs for her blanket. She gives him while he's still hiding, and when he finally comes out, he thanks her. As she asks why he needs a blanket, Henry says he's a time traveler who is there from the future. Claire doesn't believe this, but Henry tells her things about herself. Claire is still not convinced, and he says that if she waits a bit longer, she'll see him disappear. Claire looks curious, and Henry says he'll be coming around more often. He also tells her to get some of her dad's clothes ready for him, so he doesn't need her blanket again. He then disappears and leaves Claire smiling. The next morning, Claire and Henry go to a park, and there, she asks how it really feels when he disappears. Henry explains that he can't control it, and every time he disappears to a new place, he keeps waiting for when he'll return. When he sounds like his ability to travel through time is bad, she says it must be great because he can see people from the past, like his mother. However, Henry says it doesn't change anything because he has tried to save her many times, but it doesn't work. Later on, Claire takes him to meet her roommate and best friend, Charisse. Henry also meets Charisse's boyfriend, Gomez, who wants to get to know Claire's new boyfriend. After a while, though, Gomez meets the ladies in the kitchen and says Henry must be a boring guy because he didn't really say much about himself. Meanwhile, Henry walks around the apartment and sees Claire's room. He also finds her diary and starts reading it. Claire catches him, and he says sorry, saying he only wanted to know what to expect when he meets her younger self. That night after dinner, Henry gets into a fight with a street thug after disappearing and wearing a lady's blouse and shorts. Gomez sees Henry and is shocked to see what Henry is wearing. As Henry walks away to get new clothes, Gomez follows him and can't believe his eyes when Henry breaks into a store. He tells Henry that something about him seems off and he needs to stay away from Claire. However, Henry says since they'll be friends for a long time, there's no need to hide things from Gomez. He tells Gomez that he's a time traveler, though Gomez doesn't believe this. He asks Henry if he eventually gets married to Charisse, but Henry says he can't tell him. Gomez then tells Henry that he's lying about being a time traveler, But as Henry disappears, this leaves Gomez confused. The next day, he goes to meet Claire to warn her about Henry, but she says she already knows, and she has been waiting for him for a long time. Elsewhere, Henry goes back in time and meets his mother Annette on a train. She doesn't know who he is, but he still talks to her, saying he just found a girl he loves and wants to marry her. Annette sounds happy for him and she tells him to treat the girl well. A while later, he goes to see his father, Richard. Henry says he's at the house to get Annette's ring because he found someone he wants to get married to. Richard doesn't believe Henry because he thinks no one would want to marry his son because of his condition. However, Henry says Claire knows everything about him. Richard then goes to get Annette's ring, and before he hands it over to Henry, he says he still misses his late mother. The next day, Henry proposes to Claire, and she accepts, saying it's what she has wanted for a long time. They then start making preparations for the wedding, and just days before the big day, Henry meets Claire's mom, Lucille, who shows him Claire's dad, Philip, while he's practicing his shooting for an upcoming hunting trip. Shortly after, Henry sits with Philip to discuss the wedding. Philip asks if Henry is truly ready, and he says he is. Before they end their conversation, Philip asks Henry if he's good at hunting. Henry says he has never tried it before, and Philip says he'd like to teach him one day. A while later, Henry is happy to see Richard when he arrives for the wedding. Everything seems to be going fine, until Henry disappears while preparing to head out with Gomez. Gomez knows that this is a big problem, but just as he panics, Henry returns for the wedding, but now has gray hair. Shortly after, Henry and Claire finally get married, and while they're jumping around that night, Henry disappears, leaving Claire alone. Henry travels to the past and sees younger Claire for the first time. She seems to have been expecting him and gives him something to eat. As he eats it, she says it was for her dad, but she doesn't think he deserves it because of how he'd been ignoring her and Lucille. She also says she thinks her parents will get divorced, but Henry says they won't. She then asks if he's married, and when he says he is, Claire asks if he loves his wife. Henry says he does, and suddenly, Claire starts to feel jealous. Later that day, Henry returns home while Claire is already in bed. He tells her he saw her when she was younger and adds that she was jealous of his wife. Claire then jokes that she used to convince herself that his wife was ugly. As the days pass, Henry continues to disappear several times, leaving Claire all by herself. On the day he returns after disappearing for 2 weeks, Henry says sorry when he sees that Claire doesn't look happy. She, however, says she has to leave for work because their place is too small for her to keep working. After the day's work, Henry waits for her outside where she works, and when she sees him, she sits with him. He then says he needs to take her somewhere. Shortly after, they get to a lottery shop with many TVs, where the host is about to announce the lucky numbers. Henry shows Claire his lottery ticket, which has all the lucky numbers to win $5 million. Despite Henry looking excited, Claire thinks it's cheating. However, when Henry says they can throw the ticket away, she decides against it and chooses to accept the gift from Henry. With their new fortune, they start looking to buy a new house that is big enough for Claire to also work in. Despite checking several places, Henry keeps telling Claire it's not their house. However, Henry finally sees the house he saw them live in the future. After they take the house, Gomez and Charisse come over to visit them. While they're all in the kitchen, they all hear a loud sound in the living room. As they check what it is, they see the body of future Henry, who has been shot. As they take a look, the body soon disappears, and Henry walks away. Claire then goes to ask Henry if he knows when he'll die. Henry says he doesn't, and Claire looks scared because she has never seen him in his old age. She tries to make up possible theories that he probably found a cure and stopped traveling through time. Claire then tells him she's expecting a baby. Henry can't believe his ears and looks happy with the news. The next day, after checking around for doctors named Kendrick in his area, Henry finally goes to meet the one who is an expert in genetics. Henry tries to explain his condition, calling it a genetic anomaly. Henry also tells Kendrick that he was the one who helped his future self manage the condition. Dr. Kendrick doesn't take Henry seriously and thinks it's a prank. This forces Henry to leave angrily, saying he knew coming to see him was a mistake. Elsewhere, Claire gets serious stomach pain while eating at a restaurant. She is taken to the hospital, and when Henry gets there, she tells him that she lost the baby. This makes Henry return to Dr. Kendrick to ask for help because he believes there's a possibility that the baby can also travel through time, and it might be the reason for the miscarriage. Dr. Kendrick still doesn't think he's the right person for the job, but Henry tells him to do a few tests to confirm that he's serious. The doctor agrees, and while doing the test, Henry disappears, and Kendrick realizes that Henry has been telling the truth. Weeks after analyzing the test results, Dr. Kendrick explains to Henry and Claire that Henry's brain emits a strong blast of electromagnetic energy when he disappears. He, however, says he needs to do more tests. Since Claire is also pregnant again, he adds that there are drugs that can be used to slow down the condition in the baby, though it is too powerful for the fetus, and they'd have to monitor it. That night, Claire sees blood on her bed, and it appears that she has lost the baby again. The next morning, Henry goes for surgery that will stop him from being able to have children. When he returns home, he feels guilty and tells Claire about it, and she gets angry. Henry says he doesn't want to make their baby go through his condition, but Claire says she doesn't care. At night, she receives a call from someone and heads out. It turns out to be Henry from the past, who called her after he got stuck with nowhere to go in the cold. Since Henry from the past is yet to have the surgery, Claire takes advantage of this and spends some time with him. Days later, Claire starts to act differently in the house, and Henry notices. He asks what's happening, and she tells him she's pregnant again. Henry is shocked, but she explains what happened. Claire then says she's going to do everything to make sure the baby survives, though she won't try to get attached in case she loses it again. After several weeks, Claire's stomach gets bigger, and everything seems to be going fine. Days later, Claire starts asking Henry about possible names for the baby, but Henry is still scared and says it's best they wait for the baby to be born. Shortly after, he disappears, and as he wonders where he is, a girl named Alba sees him and calls him her dad. Henry gets excited because this means their baby survives. Alba then says she's been looking forward to seeing him. She also mentions that she can travel through time and control where she goes. However, she suddenly gets sad and tells Henry that he died when she was 5. Henry doesn't look happy, but he handles the news well. As she then has to leave, Henry says he's happy to see her and that he loves her. When he returns, he tells Claire their baby's name will be Alba. Claire asks how he knows, and he says he saw their little girl when he disappeared to the future. Soon after, Claire gives birth, and as the years pass, Alba grows bigger. On Alba's 5th birthday, Henry can't help but think about his death. As they prepare for Alba's birthday party, Claire sees Alba talking to someone, and Henry tells her it's Alba from the future. Claire realizes that this means Alba can travel through time, though she's not too bothered. When Alba enters the house, she looks sad, and Claire asks if there's a problem. Alba says there's nothing, but Claire says she'll be there for her if she needs to talk. During the party, Claire sees Alba talking to Henry and wonders what's going on. As it turns out, future Alba already mentioned Henry's death to younger Alba, and he's now consoling her, while also telling her not to tell Claire. However, Claire later sees Henry and asks about Alba, but he says there's no problem, though she doesn't believe him. Much later, after the party is over, Claire asks Alba if she enjoyed her birthday. Alba continues to look sad, and Claire finally convinces her to say what's wrong. Alba tells her about Henry's death, and Claire immediately goes to ask Henry about it. She asks if he knows how he dies, but Henry says he doesn't. He then tells her he's scared, and she comforts him. The next day, Henry disappears but returns with a bullet wound and a serious fever. He is taken to the hospital, and Claire tells Dr. Kendrick that Henry said he was being chased down by some guys who eventually shot him. The doctor says everything will be fine, though Claire is worried because she knows Henry needs his legs to survive when he travels through time. However, Henry is put in a wheelchair for the meantime while he heals. At home on Christmas Eve, Alba looks sad to see Henry in a wheelchair, and she begs him to try to stay with her. He then asks her how she can avoid disappearing at any time, and she says she sings. They start singing together, but Henry still disappears and sees that he will die on Christmas Day. When he returns, he acts normally and spends Christmas Eve with his family. On Christmas Day, Henry calls Gomez to thank him for being a good friend. Gomez doesn't understand this, but Henry says something will happen that night, and he just wants to let his friend know. Gomez's mood changes, and he's about to cry when Claire comes to meet Henry. She sees Gomez's face and realizes that there could be a problem. Without saying anything, Claire figures out that Henry is dying soon. She looks terrified, and when she asks why Henry wanted her to invite a lot of guests, he says he didn't want her to be alone. A while later, Henry disappears and lands near the meadow close to Claire's family house. He sees a deer close to him, and it turns out that Philip and one of his friends are out hunting. They mistake him for a deer, and Philip shoots him. Before Philip can see what he shot, Henry returns to his house and dies in Claire's arms. Years later, while Alba plays in the meadow with her friends, she suddenly sees Henry appear behind her. She runs happily to meet him, and when he hears that she's now older, he realizes that Claire didn't stop keeping clothes in the woods for him. So that Claire can see Henry, Alba asks her friends to go and call Claire while she talks to her dad. Claire runs as fast as she can to meet Henry. When she finally does, she hugs him and says she loves him. He then asks about the clothes she left for him, and she says she always knew she'd see him again. Henry says he doesn't want her to keep waiting for him, but she doesn't seem to care. He then says he can't wait, and she responds that she knows, after which he disappears, and his clothes drop to the ground. Claire and Alba then pack it up and hold each other as they walk away and say they're sure Henry will always be with them. Thanks for tuning in. A thumbs up would be amazing because I've got some bills to pay.
Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette.